down the front street.
I was looking for you for a
Chased me
while.
down the front street for a while.
I had remember the lifeguard Turkey?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I dropped a water balloon on him once. He chased me all the way to the St. Catherine Hotel. I thought he was gonna kill me.
Yeah, he was,
Oh.
he was messing around with Scott's sister.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, with Kathy?
Yeah.
Oh.
Turkey. That's funny.
Remember him?
Yeah.
Stretching.
Did I do that on purpose?
You did it on purpose.
You what?
Tell me your name. How did you get into playing?
I said such.
Were you working there? We used so many. We had most.
Okay.
The guy just gives me a whirl, and then chocolate went out to
I didn't know I was going to get this, but I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to see everybody. Thank you. Glad to be reconnecting with everyone and doing it at the same time that we're able to honor Joey's memory, his impact on the lives of all these people who've been around this town for 60 whatever years it is. And I don't really have a lot of stories to share about Joe that I think are any better than anyone else's. So I do want to say, because I just saw Janny here, Janny Hall right there. Yeah, I got one good story about Joe. When I was 11, maybe 12, I was so hot for Janny Hall. I didn't really know what hot meant, but I was hot for Janny Hall. She was a year older, an older woman. Meant a lot to me. And she had a fort. Janny lived on the inside of town. She had a fort up the path. It's now the cat cemetery up there, up above the cat cemetery. And Janny had put together this fort. I don't know, you can tell that story however that fort came into existence, Janny. But because I was hot for Janny, I felt for some reason I had heard that Joey and a couple of his buddies were going to attack Janny's fort. I don't know what that meant. It's not really serious, but like, none of us were really serious. But it was sort of, it was a show, and I said, well, I'm going to defend Janny's fort. So one day after school, I went up, and I'm up in this tree. It was the fort. It was the tree house kind of fort that Janny had. And there was this big water tank up on the hill up next to it, not far from it, maybe 20 feet, 30 feet away. And the fort was in the initial branch, about 12, 15 feet up in the initial branches of this big tree. There's a lot of tree up above it. And I remember it went on for about an hour where we'd hear them, we could hear the guys, I don't know who was with Joey, but we could hear them going, we're gonna get him, we're gonna get him, we're gonna wreck the fort. And
It was the Marilla game.
and Joey was one of them. Yeah. He was in my class. Joey and I were in the same class. We went to class every day together. And somehow it had been arranged. This was going to happen after school. And so I'm up in the fort, and I'm just sort of there. I don't know how I thought I was defending it, but I was there. I was going to be in the fort, and nobody was going to take that fort. Joey climbed up on the water tower, apparently, And he had climbed way up high, so it was like 30, 40 feet up above the tree. And at some point, I remember that I heard this rustling in the tree above me. Apparently Joey had grabbed a rock to break the fort with and thrown it out into the tree, and you could hear it going coming all the way down the tree. And I heard it coming, and all of a sudden, the next thing I knew, I got hit in the head with a rock. And I'm out cold. I fell down about 12 feet to the ground, and I'm laying on the ground. I'm out for probably 20, 30 seconds, and I wake up, and all I hear is, "Holy shit, get out of here!" And I hear 2 or 3 people running down the path, 100 feet away, and I get up, and my blood is, my head is pulsing blood, and I remember I was like, and I just started walking down the path, and I got all the way down to Jenny's house, and I knocked on the door, and by the time I got to the door, I was literally covered in my own blood all the way down to my feet, and your mom came to the door and went, "What happened?" And I said, "I was defending Jenny's fort." She took some towels and wrapped towels around my head and my shoulders, put me on her golf cart, and drove me down to the clinic where Dr. Staff proceeded to put 9 clamps in my head, and I still have the scar. Okay, so this all happened. All right, so this was not the funny part. The funny part, that was by that time it was probably 6 in the evening. Joey has disappeared. I don't know where Joey went. Nobody. I go home. My mom comes down to Dr. Staff's, takes me home. I sleep that night. I get up the next morning and I make my way up to school. I think my mom or my dad drove me in the company truck, dropped me off at school, and I walk into the classroom. I'm a few minutes late, and all I remember is Joey Villano's face. When I walked in, he had spent the whole night, probably not slept a wink because he thought I was dead. He thought he had murdered me. And the look on his face and the relief that I saw wash over him. And by 2 hours later, we were all laughing our asses off over the whole event. But it was the closest call I had ever come to my demise at that early age. It's been a few more since. But I still have the scar to thank Joey with. But anyway, I loved him. He was a fantastic person to grow up with, the whole Villano family. Fantastic family to grow up around. Mr. Villano working the school as we grew up. He was one of the most comforting and reassuring guys to be able to run into. Mr. Prezovich and Mr. Villano. Those two in school. It was always so comforting to run into either one of those guys at school, and they were always so supportive of every kid that walked past them. Always had a good word to say, and I'm just glad I could be here to remember Joey. I got to talk to him, I Skyped him a couple days before he passed. That was a real opportunity for me to be able to say goodbye, and I think I'm just one of many people who loved him, and glad to be here. Here's to Joey.
Salute.
Now let's somebody else. I know there's a lot of stories. I'm looking at you, Arnie. There's a lot of stories that can be told. I want everybody who has one to please step up and start talking. Come on.
Colleen. She's got the
Colleen?
best story.
Colleen's got a good one, huh?
Well, this one some of you will understand more than others. When you move to the island and you're like a little nobody, there are certain indoctrinations that some people like to do, and I can name a few people who really got it worse than I did. But we moved here when my brother was in the 4th grade, and it was just summer before the 4th grade, and I was in the 6th grade. And I wish Richard Mead had made it up here, because this is about him too.
Yeah, we know where he is.
He's down there. So anyway, my first day of school, I know nobody, and I'm, first day of school, and I don't know any of the little idiosyncrasies, you might say, that were awaiting me on the way home from school that day. But there were various things that a number of people in this room used to do to new people. And when school was over, on my first nonchalantly walking home. I had no friends. I didn't know anybody. And I realized there's this like little pack behind me of guys. You know, like, oh, okay. And, you know, I was pretty tough. You know, I wasn't really intimidated by them until I started walking faster and they started walking faster. And pretty soon I realized, oh man, they are after me. And so I knew, I don't know how I knew this, but there was a shortcut that used to go straight up the hill at the top of Metropole. I lived up on Metropole. This like climbing rocks, falling, you know, I ran up there. Because they had started chasing me at that point and running, and it was Richard Mead and Curtis Montague. And so, next thing I know, I lived in Tony Gonzalez's apartment, so there's this big patio, and you could look down on Sumner. And I see Richard and Curtis down there, like, where does she go? You know, they're looking all over the place, and they're, you know, backtracking and looking all over for me, and I'm standing there like, you know, up on the thing. And so I went in, you know, told my mom, you know, I don't think I'm gonna like it here. And so the next day I go to school and everybody's staring at me like, wow, now what? Oh God, they're gonna get me. And next thing I hear, I forget who it was, one of the girls in the class came up to me and said, well, guess Joey Villano likes you. Apparently, Joey Villano, who I had no idea who Joey Villano was until that moment when I fell in love, he pushed Richard down the stairs for chasing me home. And I don't know if he got Curtis too, but I know he got Richard. And got really mad at him, and so I was Joey's first 6th grade girlfriend. And it, you know, I didn't know who he was, but boy, from then on, I thought he was just the cutest guy around. You know, he was my hero at that point. So they never caught me. So that was